What's up, my Central Unit? Is the Central Man here, so back again with another classic WWE pay-per-view revisited review. You heard me. A pay-per-view revisited review. So I did a video, an update video about 3 weeks ago. I was planning to do some pay-per-view revisited because, I thought I was decided to, not retired, but taking a break of doing classic WWE pay-per-view reviews, at the end of 2024. But, I've been doing it about 4.5 years of doing it, and now, like, the WWE's on Netflix, they just got the old shows, and then the current shows, the Raws and Smackdowns and the pay-per-views. And it got me thinking, let's not just bring back the classic WWE pay-per-view reviews. Let's do some pay-per-view revisited. Like going back to the shows I reviewed in the past. So I think it was in March. I think it was March or April of last year. I did like a redo review of Backlash 2004. It's a build-up to Backlash France. And also at the same time it was like the 20th anniversary of that show, the WrestleMania 20 Triple Threat rematch, Benoit, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and also, Callous Jack, Mick Foley taking on Randy Orton in that hardcore match, I was planning to do like that show because, like I said, it's the 20th anniversary of that show. So, anyway, that was the only time I did that, and I had no decide to do another one, and I had no plans, so I changed my mind, and you got me thinking, let's do some revisited shows I did, watch a show, and I watched the show, I reviewed the show in the past I did on this channel, and let's go back and revisit it, change my views of the show I watched. So anyway, so the first, the first wrestle, I started this, the classic WWE pay-per-view reviews, series in April of 2020. It's like 1 year after I started the Central Man Network YouTube channel, because most of the time before I had the network, it's just game streams. I did some reviews on WWE and AEW, the pay-per-views and Dynamite, and I did briefly with NWA Power. And mostly I did some debate wrestling videos, my thoughts on it, and rants, blah blah blah, etc, etc. So I did the pay-per-view, started to do the pay-per-view review series, because at the time COVID kind of hit, the world shut down, I gotta do something, no one's like, cannot leave the house, so gotta do something, and plan to do the pay-per-view review series, Anyway, the first classic, WrestleMania show I reviewed on this channel was WrestleMania 11. Because at the time was the 25th anniversary of that show. And, next month is the 30th anniversary. I'm talking about in our current timeline. And it got me thinking, but before that, I was kind of like blindly watched it without any research. I do more researches on future shows in future installments of the series I was doing, like original plans and etc, blah, blah, blah. But I was completely blindly watched it, it was like dubbed, this show is known for being one of the worst WrestleMania shows of all time, but that was back in 2020, and when I'm doing this revisited review of WrestleMania 11, I might not remember what I said 5 years ago, so it's just what it is. Blindly watch WrestleMania 11 without any knowledge, without any thinking process. I just watched the show, review it. My original review of the show will be in the description below. But anyway, so before we get to the actual show review or revisited review of Mania 11, someone commented this my review of WrestleMania 11 4 years ago. 4 years 4 years ago, going on 5 years. The guy called at Roy Strantz. So anyway, It's going to be a long review, folks. Probably take me an hour. You know, like the old review is about 17 minutes. This review is going to be technically an hour, but anyway, so Roy Strands, did his rebooking of WrestleMania 11. So here we go. So here's my rebooking for what WrestleMania 11 should be based around the feuds and the storyline that were going on at the time with the roster we got. So the first match is the new Head Shrinkers with Captain Lou Albano and Alpha, part of the Wild Samoans, taking on the Blue Brothers. That's the Future House Twins with Uncle Sebekiah. Those two teams had a brief feud on a couple episodes of Wrestling Challenge in February and March, so it makes sense for them to get on this card for a quick pay-per-view payday, with the Blue Twins getting the win. So the second match he put is Jeff Jarrett with the Roadie, that's Road Dogg Jesse James, taking on Razor Ramon with the 1-2-3 Kid, that's X-Pac by the way, for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. It did happen at the actual show. We keep this match in, and you can still have Razor win by DQ. So that's match number 2. Match number 3, we got Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, and the Smoking Guns, that is Billy and Bart Gunn, taking on Owen R. Shyster, that's IRS for short, King Kong Bundy, and Nikolai Volkov, part of the $1 Million Corporation, with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase in their corner. Just get the 6 guys on the card, and Bulldog and the Guns get the win when Bulldog pins Volkov with the running power slam. Charles Wright, that's like the former Papa Shango, Karma, the Fighting Machine, and the future Godfather, by the way. Yeah, Charles Wright. Trying to get my words out. Charles Wright still makes his WWF return, but as Papa Shango instead of Karma, the Supreme Fighting Machine, and you can still feud with the Undertaker. He puts like Taker, by the way, throughout the spring and summer of 1995, culminating in their casket match at SummerSlam that year, as Taker and Shango instead of Taker versus Karma. Imagine a back and forth mind games between these two. That'll be good. That'll be really good. Anyway, so that's match number 3. So match number 4, we got Bull Nakano versus Alundra Blaze for the WWF Women's Championship. This match was held on Raw the night after, but it would make sense, or makes more sense, he put, to have it take place at WrestleMania with Alundra Blaze winning back the title, and then you can have Bertha Faye make her debut the next night on Raw by attacking Alundra, trying to get my words in, during an interview. It's a shame Alundra Blaze end up piecing out the company. I feel it's the end of the year to go to WCW. So, anyway, so that's match number 4. Bull Nakano versus Alundra Blaze. So let's move on to match number 5. He put Lex Luger versus Tatanka, part of the $1 Million Corporation, with the $1 Million Man DiBiase in his corner in a steel cage match. This feud been building since SummerSlam and Survivor Series in 1994, so the blow-off should happen here. After the match, which Luger wins, DiBiase berates Tatanka, who tries to attack him, only for Luger to return to the ring, beat down Tatanka, shake the hands of DiBiase, thus cementing Luger's heel turn so he can feud with Diesel, Shawn, Brett, and Taker. Oh, that's good. So, match number 6, he put the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly versus Haikushi and Yokozuna, with Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji in their corner for the WWF Tag Team Championships. I think Kid and Holly should have a longer title reign after winning at the Royal Rumble, and Haikushi He's the guy, if you don't know who Haikushi is, he's basically this Japanese guy with tattoos around his body. I think it was Japanese symbols around his body. If you know, look him up. Anyway, yeah. And Haikushi would also be a suitable partner for Yoko. You know, even though you know Yoko's not actually from Japan, he's from California, but at the time he's doing this Japanese gimmick. You know, the sumo. He's a big sumo wrestler. You know, that could be a suitable partner. But anyway, yeah, suitable partner for Yoko. That way, the Kid and Haikushi can exchange high-flying moves, while Holly and Yoko exchange stiff punches, kicks, and chops. We can still have Haikushi and Yoko wins the titles here, and then go on to In Your House 1, the first In Your House show in history, to defend against the Guns. That's match number 6. Match number 7 for Mania 11. Here's rebooking of Mania 11. The Undertaker with Paul Bearer versus Bam Bam Bigelow represent the $1 Million Corporation. Once again with the $1 Million Man in his corner. Yeah. Taker is feuding with the $1 Million Corporation. It makes sense for him battle their crown jewel would be obviously be Bigelow. Obviously Taker would win, but he and Bigelow can still have a decent big man match. I'm gonna read it again. I was kind of stumbling. You know, I've got a lot of learning difficulties sometimes. I can read okay, but sometimes I misread sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, match number 7 is The Undertaker with Paul Bearer versus Bam Bam Bigelow with Ted DiBiase in his corner. Since Taker is feuding with the $1 Million Corporation, it makes sense for him to battle their crown jewel, who would obviously be Bigelow. Obviously Taker would win, but he and Bigelow can still have a decent big man match. So moving on to match number 8, he put Diesel with Lawrence Taylor with Shawn Michaels with Psycho Sid for the WWF World Championship. He means the WWF Championship, you know, at the time, but it's the same title. Anyway, so instead of wrestling Bigelow, LT can be in Diesel's corner to counter Sid, and Vince gets the celebration coverage that he wants. So match number 9, we've got Adam Bomb versus Kwang. Kwang is the future Savio Vega, by the way, with Harvey Whipperman. I'm guessing in the corner of Adam Bomb. Just a quick toilet break, match to cool down the crowd between Diesel and Shawn. He puts Diesel and HBK and Bret and Owen. We'll get to Bret and Owen shortly. And allow Bomb to get the win so Kwang can disappear off TV and come back as Savio Vega at In Your House 1. And the final match he put is Bret Hart versus Owen Hart with Bob Backlund, probably in the corner of Owen Hart, in a no DQ match with Roddy Piper as the guest referee. I know that this match will held on Raw the prior to the pay-per-view, but it should occur here. Also, I don't... I misread it. Oh yeah. I'm gonna read it again, so yeah. I know that match. Yeah, I know that this match will held on that Raw prior to the pay-per-view, but I should occur here. Also, I don't have Backlund in this match on this card because his victory over Bret at Survivor Series 1994 was just a chapter in the Bret Owen feud. This finish could involve Backlund trying to interfere on the behalf of Owen, only for Piper, who would be the old generation guy sticking up for the new generation guy. So even though like Backlund's part of the old generation, but it's just what it is. Anyway, to knock Backlund the holy hell out of knocking. I'm misreading again. To knock Backlund the holy hell out, and Bret managed to make Owen submit to the sharpshooter thrust, bringing an end to the year-long feud. And also, I kind of liked his rebooking for Mania 11. And also, I commented, I said, having Lawrence Taylor in the main event at WrestleMania 11. I forgot to put at Mania 11, and beat Bam Bam Bigelow was in bad taste. It's kinda killed Bam Bam Bigelow's career in the WWF. Roy Strantz replied to me, "That's why I have Bret Owen as the main event on my card." So yeah, it's good. He put rebooking this show. I might reference it a little bit, but not throughout the whole review. But it is a good, it's a good rebooking for Mania 11. So yeah, shout out to Roy Strantz. Big up to him. So let's talk about WrestleMania 11. My revisited review of WrestleMania 11. So we're traveling back to the year of 1995, the 2nd of April of that year. This show was at the Hartford Civic Center. Right now it's called the XL Center in Hartford, Connecticut. The attendance of the show was 16,305, and WrestleMania 11 drew about 340,000 pay-per-view buys. A bit of a drop-off from the previous year's WrestleMania, that's WrestleMania 10. That show drew about 420,000 pay-per-view buys. You could tell, like, in the mid-90s for WrestleMania, it's really a dark age. It's in the dark ages, you know, because the next two WrestleManias, 12 and 13, it massively dropped into that 2,000 buy rate mark. Mania 12, I think, drew about 290,000 pay-per-view buys. And Mania 13, I did cover in the past, drew about 237,000 pay-per-view buys. The next time a WrestleMania in that decade will get a really good buy rate, it will be WrestleMania 14 in the Attitude Era. That show drew about 730,000 pay-per-view buys, because you had Mike Tyson as the special guest enforcer in the match between Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. You know, the Austin era kicked off, and yeah, that you could tell that was the dark day for the for WrestleMania. After Mania 10, you could tell the buy rates starting to go down, because at the time in the mid-90s for the World Wrestling Federation, you know, attendance, like ticket sales are starting to drop. They're struggling to find the next top star. So, like, wow, it's just, I don't want to get into details. I want to like on about it. It's just wow. They did recover like in the late 90s, but in the early to mid 90s, you can tell the buy rates, the attendance, ticket shows, whatever. The company was on that downward spiral, and it's just, you know, it will take about 3 or 4 years until they get back on their feet, you know, creatively wise. Anyway, so the commentators for WrestleMania 11, we got Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler. Shocking to me, JR is a ring interviewer for this show, because he commentated his first WrestleMania, that's Mania 9, 2 years ago, back in 1993. Now he's a ring interviewer, interviewing the wrestlers on the entrance way, because this is before they end up doing the 3-man commentary team. They end up doing that when WCW will do it when the debut of Nitro, have, you know, Bischoff, Mongo, Heenan, and then WWF will probably they'll do, you know, with Vince, JR, and the King. Yeah, they briefly do with was it Vince, the King, and Mr. Perfect for a cup of coffee, and then JR will take over Perfect's place. So when Perfect left the company, so, you know, back then it was a 2-man commentary team. It'll soon become a 3-man commentary team soon, but not yet. Anyway, so before we get to this, so let's talk about the theme for WrestleMania 11. The theme for WrestleMania 11 is celebrities. So there was a video package of celebrities who made their appearance for WrestleMania between 1 through 10, instead of the moments who made WrestleMania the actual global event for pop culture. You know, it's just basically like ludicrous back then, because at the time the three big guys, the 3 top guys who made WrestleMania a global success throughout the 80s up to the early 90s are no longer with the company. That is Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior, even though Warrior came back to the company in 1996, 1 year later, but that's another story for another time. Yep, three guys were not on bad terms with the company. Yep, Mania 3, you don't see, you don't see Hogan body slam Andre. I think you had Anita or Neva Franklin. Focus more on the celebrities. They did show Andre the Giant briefly in that video package because Andre has been dead for 2 years at the time. Another wrestler who made WrestleMania a success throughout the 80s and up to the the mid 80s up to the early 90s. But anyway, and the focus on the celebrities of Mania 11. We've got Pamela Anderson, part of she was from Baywatch. The one with David Hasselhoff. You got Jenny McCartney, part of NTV, and also she did end up doing Playboy. I don't know if she's done porn. I'm not familiar with Jenny McCartney. Anyway, you got Nicholas Totoro, who's like part of a show called NYPD Blue. Not familiar with that. You got Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Part of Home Improvement. I know Home Improvement is, it stars Tim Allen, the guy who voices Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. He kind of posed alongside Luger and Bulldog. We'll get to more of that shortly. You had Totoro. I don't know what he's doing. I think he's grabbing the Undertaker's wrist, checking his pulse, something like that. Anyway, and then the final celebrity appearance. Two actually. You got Salt and Pepper. I'm guessing leaning towards Bret Hart. Bret was wearing his leather jacket, not his singlet. Yeah, he's in good shape, but I don't think they had a massive fall in this WrestleMania for Salt and Pepper. I don't get it. And then you got Lawrence Taylor and his pro football team, because, by the way, this show is memorable for the main event. That is one of the matches that were memorable for this show is Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event. We'll get to that later on. And yeah, they focus on the celebrities. I'll get more of the celebrities later on, but they just like focus on the celebrities, but instead focus on the main stars, not the actual match on the card. Like, I don't get it, it's just like, what the hell? Like, not focus on the matches on the card, but it's just the celebrities' appearance, I'll get to more of that soon. Anyway, so Special Olympian Kathy Huey singing America the Beautiful, and I've done my research of it. The original plan for someone singing the America Beautiful, that's a tradition for WrestleMania, is Fishbone. This band Fishbone was supposed to sing America Beautiful on this show. For whatever reason, they got pulled out. Why? Like, why can I have... For me, I would rather have Salt and Pepper, singing America the Beautiful, but that's just me. And, I don't want to get into that, so... Anyway, so the first match to kick off WrestleMania 11, we got the Allied Powers, that is Lex Luger and the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith taking on the Blues Twins, or the Blues Brothers. Same thing, actually. They are Jacob and Eli Blue. They are the future Harris brothers in WCW. They're kind of like the Green Twins. Skull and 8 Ball or Skull and Change of DOA. I think Skull and 8 Ball. Yeah, I think it's Skull and 8 Ball. Yes, Skull. Jacob end up becoming Skull of DOA, and Eli. That is, I think it's Skull and 8 Ball, or Skull. I was right, Skull and 8 Ball. I'm looking at on the Wikipedia page. With Uncle Sebekaya, and also they end up becoming Patrick and Gerald when they were in WCW. It's basically a nod to Pat Patterson and Jerry Briscoe of Crate Control in 1999's WCW, and also become the Harris Brothers, like I said. Uncle Sebekaya is Dutch Mantel, the future Seb Coulter, managing Jack Swagger and Cesaro with the people. Anyway, so wow, Lex Luger has fallen off. The really has fallen. I'm trying to say. I say fallen off. I almost say fallen off the wagon, but he kind of fallen from grace. Like 18 months ago, he's kind of like self-proclaimed the heir to Hulk Hogan's throne. This is the guy who body slamming Yokozuna on the USA Triptych in July. I think it's June or July. This was after his ditching the narcissist gimmick. Then he was touring around America in the Lex Express, acting like he's running for becoming president of the United States of America. Then fast forward SummerSlam. Yeah, fast forward at SummerSlam. He's facing the evil foreigner Japanese Yokozuna for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. He managed to beat Yokozuna, but that was in a count-out finish. But unfortunately, he failed to win the championship. That was SummerSlam 1993. Then, fast forward to the beginning of 1994, he co-win the 1994 Royal Rumble match with Bret Hart, get a second shot at Yokozuna for the championship, and this time he once again failed to win the championship. This time he lost the match by disqualification. He had Mr. Perfect as the special guest referee. So yeah, he has fallen, and also he kind of like failed to qualify for the 1994 King of the Ring tournament. He ended up losing to two pay-per-view matches to Tatanka at SummerSlam and Survivor Series of 1994. So in the start of 1995, yep, he came in the final four at the 1995 Royal Rumble match. Unfortunately, got eliminated by Shawn Michaels. Now he's in the short tag team with the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. Anyway, as for Davey Boy Smith, he made his return to the Federation after spending, was it 2 years in WCW? He spent a short stint in WCW. It's the same thing. So he spent a short stint in WCW. He kind of was feuding with Vader for the World Championship. He came back at SummerSlam in 1994, attending the show. He kicked off his 1995 going to the distance at the 1995 Royal Rumble match. Unfortunately, lost to Shawn Michaels. In the end, he was the last man eliminated. So yeah, it's funny that in the end he ended up I'm talking about at the end of the year he ended up facing his brother-in-law Brett at that In Your House show in December, seeing beatings for the world title. The rematch from SummerSlam of 1992, and fell in come up short. Anyway, so they formed this tag team in January, the 2nd of January. The Blues Brothers, Jacob and Eli Blue, also debuted with the Federation in January. They came through Smoking Mountain Wrestling. He had a short run in ECW. Yeah, they made their debut in 1995. They kind of give them this undefeated streak. Anyway, the match itself wasn't bad. It was, I don't really call it a bad match, to be honest. I don't call it the worst opener of all time. It wasn't. I don't think it was a worst opener. I think it was a lackluster opener in Mania's history, but I don't say, oh, this was bad. It wasn't bad. Both tag teams didn't really shit the bed. Both Bulldog and Luger kind of hit the Blues Brothers with some not so. It's not really. They're kind of like okay scoop slams or power slams, but they're not bad. They're not like they're dropping on their fucking heads. But besides that, I think that it was an uninteresting match to watch. It was short. They made the most for 6 minutes, but the one thing it's interesting about this match is the twin magic. Every time Sebekaya trying to interfere, the twins kind of switch places. That's kind of the only thing to, get involved or get your eyes on the match or capture-plated. Not capture-plated. What's that? What am I fucking saying? That's the only thing you care about this match is twin magic. I think one more of the match. You had Luger hit one of the Blues Brothers with the forearm shot. At the time he's not doing the torture rack. He's doing the I think it's called the I think it was the forearm shot. You know, he had the metal plate in his arm. Go look it up, by the way. And then Sebekaya interfered. Twin Magic again. Which one's Jacob? Which one Eli? We don't know. We probably don't care. But anyway, trying to keep it short and simple. In the end, Luger tagged into Bulldog. Bulldog did like a sunflip roll up onto one of the Blues Brothers to win this match. Yeah, this match is designed to get in the Allied Powers over. That was it. Anyway, so yeah, I don't say it's the worst Mania match of all time. It was short. It was the only thing you care about is the one match is a little bit interesting is Twin Magic. You know, the Blues Brothers switching up, like I said. But besides that, you know, not bad, but it's just like a 2.5 star match. They didn't shit the bed, but it's just like this is the way to kick off WrestleMania, and this is a WrestleMania style match. I don't think it's a it had no worth to be on the biggest show of the year. This was a massive drop off, by the way, because 1 year prior you had Bret vs. Owen. This is considered one of the greatest WrestleMania openers of all time. That was in 1994. Fast forward in 1995, we got the Allied Powers taking on the Blues Brothers. And this was, by the way, this is Lex Luger's third and final WrestleMania match. I think his matches at Mania are terrible because him and Bulldog end up continue as a tag team. Then I think it's at In Your House 3 or In Your House. I think it was In Your House 2 or 3. They end up like challenging for the tag team title belts. Unfortunately, they came up short, and Luger ended up piecing out the company. He ended up going to WCW or return to WCW, showing up at the first Monday Nitro. Bulldog turned heel, aligned himself with Count Cornette. I don't think Count Cornette was a thing at the time, but anyway, he ended up challenging Bret at the end of the year. So I think they missed the boat on putting the tag team title belts onto the Allied Powers. I think the presentation is good. Both are muscly. You got Luger is all American, the red, white, and blue. You know, Bulldog is also red, white, and blue of Britain. You know, the British Bulldog. You know, both carrying the American flag and the British flag. The presentation is good, but they missed a great opportunity to putting the belts onto them. You know, it's really shocking for Luger. He's never won a single championship in his only run in the WWF. You know, the only accolade he won in his time with the company was co-winning the 1994 Royal Rumble match with Bret Hart. He's the co-winner of the 1994 Royal Rumble match. You know, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but that's his only accolade. I wish he's never been world champion, failed to win the world title twice against Yokozuna. I don't think he challenged for the IC title. He ended up like teaming up with Bulldog, failed to win the championships, and yeah, they really dropped the ball on Luger, man. You know, compared to his first run in WCW, he was part of the Four Horsemen. He was United States champion. At the end of his first run in the company, he was the world champion. You know, it's just what it is. So I'm going to leave it that. So let's move on to the next match of the show. So the next match of the show, first of 3 championship matches of the night. This one is for the Intercontinental Championship. Double J, Jeff Jarrett with the Roadie. The Roadie is the Road Dogg, Jesse James, defending the belts against... defend the belts. No, sorry, my apologies. A bit of a tongue twisting moment, but anyway. Jarrett defending the belt against Razor Ramon with the 1-2-3 Kid in his corner. So this is a rematch from Royal Rumble of January. You know, Jarrett defeat Razor Ramon at the Royal Rumble after the help by the Roadie, that's Road Dogg Jesse James. He kind of clipped Razor's leg. He was going for like the Razor's edge in the ring, but instead his knee kind of gave out. Jarrett rolled up Razor with a small package to win this match and become the Intercontinental Champion. I think it was the first time in his career, in his first run in the company. So, and also the one reason why people regard WrestleMania 11 one of the worst manias of all time is the audio problems. There was not really tactical difficulties, but there was an audio difficulties. You know, before we get to the rest of the match, you had Nick Totoro trying to interview in, I think it was Pamela Anderson or Jamie McCartney. I think it was Pam. I think Pam wears the black dress and Jam wears the white dress. Anyway, so he trying to interview Pam or Jen, Pamela Anderson and Jenna McCartney, but you couldn't hear a thing. And then when 123 Kid trying to Vince trying to interview 123 Kid and Razor Ramon, you don't really hear him. You can't actually hear him in the background, but he was holding the mic, but the mic is not on. It's not working. So that's like very bad. It's first Mania with these problems since WrestleMania 2 in 1986. So anyway, let's talk about the actual match. So the match was good between Jeff Jarrett and Razor Ramon. It was a good back and forth between both guys. My only knock about this match, there was a lot of interference by the Roadie. Roadie interviewed 6 fucking times. It really hurt this match a lot. I know he's the heel. He's trying to help his heel guy, helping Jarrett to win. I understand that, but it's 6 fucking times. It just sometimes it just makes that guy a coward, to be honest. I think like with 123 Kid, he did interfere. Like one more in the match, he's going for he was going for the trying to ram Jarrett's balls onto the ring post, but Jarrett countered it. So yeah, it was a good back and forth match. Jarrett did work on the leg of Razor Ramon. The same knee. Roadie injured that knee at the Rumble. Anyway, trying to keep it short and simple, Kid was dressing up like a ninja. Not a ninja, but like something out from a martial arts film, Like, it's weird with Sean Waltman without the beard. He ended up growing the goatee, facial hair, and the singlet, But instead he's wearing, he did wear his singlet, that was his attire, what I'm thinking. But it's weird, he ended up growing facial hair. That was to be in his second run in the company, and also he's running WCW. But anyway, so in the end, Razor was going to hit Jarrett with the Razor's Edge. Suddenly, Roadie did the same clip he did at the Rumble. This time in the ring, that caused a disqualification. Jarrett and Roadie beating down Razor after this match. The Kid, 123 Kid, trying to save Razor Ramon, kicking Jarrett and Roadie with some kicks, with some martial arts kicks. I think he did like a spinning heel kick onto, I think it was on Jarrett or Roadie. One of the kicks ended up busting Jeff Jarrett's nose. So yeah, he also got beaten down by Jarrett and Roadie. And it's just basically just a continuation of this rivalry between Razor Ramon and Jeff Jarrett. And also, this match is a good match. Don't get me wrong, but it's a massive drop off from the last Intercontinental title match at the last year's WrestleMania. It's very like 1 year prior, both Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels had a barn burner in that ladder match that really both in my opinion, put Jarrett and Razor's career on the map. At the time, ladder matches were kind of new. It's the norm right now in the current wrestling landscape. But yeah, Jarrett and Razor went on to really 1 month later. Both Jarrett and Razor, they kind of trade back and forth with the Intercontinental Championship. But unfortunately, it was not on pay-per-view or Monday Night Raw or Wrestling Challenge or Superstars. No, this was on a house show in Quebec. Razor beat Jarrett for the championship. On the 19th of November, 19th of May of 1995, become a first 3-time Intercontinental Champion. And then 2 days later, Jarrett regained the title back. He went on to hold the belt until dropping the belt to Shawn Michaels at the second in-house show in I think it was in June. I think it was June or July, because King of the Ring was June and July, because at the time the Big Five, and then they introduced the in-house shows. Anyway, so the following month at the in-house one show, Razor defeat Roadie and Jarrett, but this time it was a non-title match. It was just a 2-on-1 handicap match. Roadie and Jarrett beat down Razor Ramon. At least you got some kind of a payoff. You got the debut of Savio Vega, because by the way, I think it was a bit of an ass booking. I think it was backwards booking, because Jarrett beat Razor for the title at the Rumble and had him retain via DQ at WrestleMania. So it's just what it is, man. I don't want to get in depth about it. So let's move on to the next match. So the next match we got The Undertaker with Paul Bearer taking on King Kong Bundy, represent the $1 Million Corporation, with Ted DiBiase Sr. in his corner, with special guest referee Larry Youngs. Larry Youngs, done my research of this guy, is a Major League Baseball umpire, because at the time the Major League Baseball season is on strike. So yeah, I don't want to get into that, look it up. So anyway, so this is a continuation of the rivalry between The Undertaker and Ted DiBiase and the $1 Million Corporation. So DiBiase introduced The Undertaker at the 1990 Survivor Series, and then fast forward 4 years later, he wants to destroy The Undertaker when he bring Undertaker into the World Wrestling Federation. So Undertaker came back in the summer of 1994 at SummerSlam, taking on the fake Undertaker, and that was Chains, who's the fake Undertaker, he'll end up becoming Chains, part of DOA. DiBiase formed the $1 Million Corporation. That was him. That was Owen R. Shyster. That's IRS. You know, the father of Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt. Nikolai Volkov. Bam Bam Bigelow. Karma, the Supreme Fighting Machine. That's the future Godfather, by the way. Talk about the first installment of the group, by the way. DiBiase, Volkov, Shyster, Bam Bam Bigelow, Tatanka, who's just joined the group at SummerSlam in 1994, betraying Lex Luger, and King Kong Bundy. Bundy made his return to the Federation after 6 years off. He kind of this was after the Royal Rumble of 1995. Undertaker was still feuding with the $1 Million Corporation. He defeated Owen I. Shyster. Then you got a confrontation between Bam Bam Bigelow, King Kong Bundy, and The Undertaker. After that you had Taker got beaten down. DiBiase stole the big urn of The Undertaker off of Paul Bearer. That was Owen Shyster who did I think he attacked Paul Bearer, snatched the urn. So that set up this match on the show. King Kong Bundy, man. I done my research. I think this is his first I think this is Bundy's first WrestleMania since WrestleMania 4. I think WrestleMania. Yeah, I think it was his first this is Bundy's first WrestleMania for 7 years. He left the company in 1988. I think his last WrestleMania was I checked the card. Checking. Was he in the... No. I'll be damned. Maybe in the Battle Royal. I'm just checking, folks, before we get the actual matches. So, I'm going to leave it... I'm going to pace it all out. No. I think it was 1980. Maybe 1987, but no, I can't remember. It doesn't say. Check. Check. No! He's not in WrestleMania 4. I'll be damned. He's not on the show. So this is this is Bundy's first WrestleMania since WrestleMania 3 in 1987. 8 years. I'll be a son of a bitch. He's not on WrestleMania 4. Son of a bitch. He's not at WrestleMania 3. Didn't wrestle at WrestleMania 4. His last Mania was Mania 3. That was in 1987. So anyway, let's get back to this match. So, like the opener from this show at Mania 11, Allied Powers versus the Blues Brothers. The only thing is interesting about this story in this match is the urn. Early parts of the match, Undertaker managed to snatch the big urn off the ends of the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, give it to Paul Bearer. Out comes the Supreme Fighting Machine Karma. That's future Godfather, by the way. Former Papa Shango, by the way, as well. Dex Paul Bearer, snatched the urn. The Karma got interviewed by Jim Ross, but you can't really hear a damn thing because there's audio issues. I'll get to more of Karma shortly. After that, I don't really call it the worst match of the street, to be honest, to be fairly. It wasn't, like the two worst matches of the Undertaker's streak was Giant Gonzalez Mania 9. And by the way, this is Undertaker's first WrestleMania match for 2 years because he missed Mania 10 because he took a time off after the casket match against Yokozuna, and he came back for SummerSlam 94 against the fake Undertaker. Anyway, and you know, Big Boss Man, Hell in a Cell match 4 years later at Mania 15. You know, but Bundy match, I don't recall Bundy's match was the worst match. I think it's one of the worst matches, but it's a bang average match, to be honest. Yeah, Taker, I think, like, Bundy was not quite selling Undertaker's moves, like clotheslines. I think he did, like, Undertaker did, like, the new school, or at the time it's called the current school, onto Bundy. No sells. I think the story is all about the urn. Without the urn, Undertaker ended up losing his powers. They're not really telling a good story about this. I don't want to get in more details about it. But it's just like, man, I wish they told a better story, you know, like have Bundy attack Undertaker first to nail the point home about Undertaker's nothing without the urn. That's just me. Anyway, so Bundy was okay in this match. He didn't really shit the bed. I think he's kind of past his best, man. You know, no, I think the guy's nearly up. I think the guy was about 10 years older than the Undertaker. I think he did like a splash in the corner, the clothesline. Wasn't boring. It was just uninteresting. It was like 2.5 stars, but in the end, Undertaker, like, I think he was going for the Tombstone Piledriver, but instead he body slams King Kong Bundy, hit the running clothesline for the win. Undertaker is 4-0 at WrestleMania. At the time, it wasn't really called the streak, but shocking to me, Undertaker did not. I thought it just basically did a running clothesline and that was it, or the jumping clothesline and that was it. And he didn't really hit Bundy with the choke slam and the Tombstone Piledriver. You know, you thought this on paper, this is going to be a good match, but it wasn't. It's supposed to be a decent big man match, but instead, it wasn't. I wish they did Bam Bam Bigelow Undertaker. You know, in Roy Strance's booking of the show, or rebooking of the show, but instead it's just like uninteresting. Undertaker I think he was trying to go for the Tombstone Piledriver. It's funny, like a decade later, he'll do it to Mark Henry in the casket match at Mania 22 in 2006, and then he couldn't do it against King Kong Bundy at Mania 11 in 1995. It's just what it is. So the stuff with Karma, you know, regaining the urn, and Taker regaining the urn, and instead end up losing it once again by the $1 Million Corporation, by Karma. This was setting up Karma Undertaker for that year's SummerSlam. You had Karma melting down the urn into golden chains on his neck. Yeah, the fight in the casket match, Undertaker regained the urn, and the urn is once again the super urn. Yeah, I don't understand why they did that. I think that at the time maybe the Undertaker Paul Bearer partnership is starting to get stale. Yeah, they end up breaking up, you know, the following year. You know, Undertaker had lots of crap matches in the 90s. You know, the streak matches at Mania and the non-streak matches, you know. I think the best Undertaker match at WrestleMania in the 1990s has to be, talk about at WrestleMania of the streak, was against Kane at Mania 14 3 years later. You know, he has a lot of crap matches, you know. Like, he's going to have better matches in the next decade against Ric Flair, Triple H, Randy Orton, a decade later after his match against King Kong Bundy, Batista, Edge, Shawn Michaels, you know. We're a long way, man, but, the 90s, you know, I think, the early 90s of the Undertaker's career were bad. I think the second half will get a lot better of his feuds against Mankind, with Kane. Even, you know, he ended up he had a good feud with Austin, you know, leading up to Highway from Hell. So let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is for the WWF Tag Team Championships. Billy and Bart Gunn defending the belts against Owen Hart and his mysterious opponent. So here's the backstory of this. You know, I think they did a tag team title tournament. This was after Shawn and Diesel, the dudes of attitudes, kind of held the belt up, so the title was vacant. They did a tournament to crown new tag team champions at the Royal Rumble. I think it was 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly. I thought it was My Genetti, but it was actually 1-2-3. It's actually 1-2-3. I checked. It's 1-2-3 Kid and My Genetti. I don't know who is that. Is it My Genetti? Jesus Christ! I need to look it up, man. Jesus Christ! Sorry about that. You know. It's 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Harley. I thought it was, to me, I thought it was Maya Janae, but it's actually 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Harley. You know, they won the tag team title belts against Bam Bam Bigelow and Tatanka of the Million Dollar Corporation. Like one day after the Royal Rumble, Harley and the Kid dropped the belts to the Smoking Guns. I thought it was Maya Janae, by the way, but thank God I got Wikipedia, man. You know, to get fresh my memory. You know, but I thought it was 1-2-3 Kid Maya Janae. You know, did they did the new Rockers? Or maybe it was like Leaf Cassidy, that's Al Snow, by the way. It's really confusing, but anyway, so the Smoking Guns are the tag team champions. Owen came out. He announced that his mysterious tag team partner is the guy who is the one who beat Bret for the WWF Championship, and that guy is Yokozuna. You know, because at the time, because Owen lost the championship. He lost the championship match against Bret in the steel cage match at SummerSlam. So basically, he's interpreting that he brought a guy he failed to win the championship and want that the other person beat Bret for the championship. That is Yokozuna, and it got me thinking that Bret defeated Yokozuna for the championship at Mania 10. He regained the championship from Yokozuna at Mania 10. So it's just what it is. I don't want to get into that. So we got Yokozuna. You know, we haven't seen Yokozuna on World Wrestling Federation television since Survivor Series of 1994. This after he fought in the casket match 2 against The Undertaker at Survivor Series. He had revolving around Chuck Norris. The reason why, because he was on the program. I think he was on some kind of program to lose weight. Unfortunately, that kind of backfired because he ended up gaining weight. He ended up losing his job the following year. Don't get into that. Look it up. So anyway, Yokozuna was not the original choice for Owen's partner. The original plan is supposed to be Owen and Neidhart. That's Jim the Anvil Neidhart, because Neidhart was tagging along with Owen. This was during Owen's feud with his older brother Bret. They did form, when Owen was first come to the company, he was tagging along with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, reforming the new Hart Foundation, because at the time Bret was on his singles career run. So for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason why, they kind of scrapped the whole idea to have Owen and Neidhart winning the belts. Neidhart ended up leaving the company. He came back in 1997, 2 years later, but that was the original plan. And also the second original plan, the original rumor at the time, it was supposed to be Owen Hart teaming up with Chris Benoit, because Benoit trained in the Hart family dungeon. He was wrestled in the Hart's Stampede wrestling promotion in the 80s before coming to America. I think at the time he was wrestling in ECW, WCW, and New Japan. He was rumored to be be the tag team partner for Owen, but whatever reason, I don't think it was come to fruition. Because Benoit ended up going to WCW, part of the Four Horsemen. The rest is history. This was 5 years ago. This is 5 years before he ended up signing with the WWF in the year 2000 to bring in Guerrero, Satin, and Malenko with him to form the Radicals. So, I don't know, man. Owen and Neidhart, maybe it's unusual. Even though, Neidhart is the brother-in-law, he's part of the Hart family because he's the brother-in-law to... What's Natalia's mother's name? I can't remember. I don't want to get into that, so... Anyway, the match between Yokozuna and Owen and Yoko and Smoking Guns. Okay match, to be honest, but besides that, kind of boring. I think Owen and the Guns kind of were the workhorses of this match. The two moments of the match I kind of like. You had the Guns hitting Owen. First off, it was a back body drop, net break, I think. And then minutes later, They hit Owen with a sidewalk slam leg drop combo. That's kind of cool. But besides that, uninteresting. Yokozuna he was so gassed, man. He ended up like growing facial hair around his face. Before that, before he came back for this show, he was clean shaved. Yeah, the guy was so out of shape, man. He didn't really botch or shit the bed. He was so gassed. He's not physically. He's not ready, man. You can tell he's so gassed. He gained a lot of weight. I don't want to get into that. So anyway, in the end, he hit Yoko. Hit I think it was Billy Gunn with the bonsai drop. Nia call it the Annihilator. Was it the Annihilator? Sometimes I compare Yokozuna to Nia Jax a little bit. They're both heavy. They're both doing the same submission hold. Not submission hold. The same finishing move. They're both like fat. They're both bigger wrestlers. Both similar in height and weight. I can compare both Yoko to Nia, but anyway, so Yoko hit Billy with the bonsai drop, tagging Owen Hart. Owen was going for the sharpshooter, trying to make Billy Gunn tap out, but instead he pins Billy to win this match. Both Owen Hart and Yokozuna are the new World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions. So I'm guessing this was Owen's first championship match in his first run, in his only run in the company. First championship match. I think it's his first. Yeah, this is his first championship. Yeah, this got to be his first championship match in the company. Owen went on to win the tag team title belts again, or with two other tag team partners with his brother-in-law, Davey Boy Smith, and also with Jeff Jarrett. In 1999. So yeah, this has got to be his first championship. He won. Before that, the only accomplishment he won was winning the 1994 King of the Ring tournament. It's all about Owen and Yoko winning the belts. They went on to hold that belt for 5 months until they dropped the belts to Shawn Michaels and Diesel. They did all. Owen went on to beat his other brother-in-law, David Boy Smith, and Lex Luger, the Allied Powers, in Your House 3. Then they did a storyline in Your House 4. They did the whole. The IC title, the WWF title, and the tag team belts all on the line. They did the teasing one of them's gonna be, WWE IC champion and the tag team belts, but instead they did I think the title was reversed. The match decision was reversed. So might review that in the foreseeable future. So it's just what it is. So anyway, they didn't shit the bed. The Smoking Guns, man. Underrated tag team with Billy Gunn. What people say about Billy Gunn in tag teams, they'll probably say, I don't know, with Road Dogg Jesse James, the New Age Outlaws, or Billy and Chuck. Billy's been always throughout his whole career, always has been a tag team guy. He tagged along with Bart Gunn. He tagged along with Road Dogg. That was most successful. He tagged along with Chuck Palumbo, Billy and Chuck in the Ruthless Aggression era. And he did tag along with Road Dogg again a decade later. And then it's funny, in AEW, he's tagged along with his sons and the Acclaim. They won the tag team title belts in AEW. I think at the time, in his run in AEW, I think Billy was the manager of the Acclaim. It's just what it is. So anyway, I just see Billy just a tag team guy. Yeah, they're trying to make him as a singles guy, but it's just what it is, man. I don't want to get. It didn't really pan out. Anyway, so next match, yeah. Move on to the next match. So the next match, this is the third match of this is the fourth match of the night or fifth match of the night. You had the Allied Powers versus the Blues Brothers. You had Jarrett versus Razor for the IC title. Undertaker, King Kong Bundy. Tag team title match. So yeah, this is the match number 5. So match number 5, we got Bret Hart taking on Bob Backlund with Roddy Piper as the special guest referee. So this is started in the summer of 1994. This happened in July. I think it was July or August of that year. I'm guessing this was after SummerSlam. I think it's in that certain time period. I think it was before SummerSlam or after SummerSlam. I think it was after SummerSlam, actually. You had Bret taking on Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship. Backlund, who made his return to the Federation in 1992 after spending, I think it was 8 years away from not just for the Federation, but wrestling also. So he came back in 1992. Fast forward in 1994, in the summer of 1994, he challenged Bret for the championship at, I think it was Superstars. Shocking to me, it was not on Monday Night Raw. Anyway, so Bret won and retained the title. Backlund snapped. He ended up locking Bret in the crosswind chicken face. Became Psychotic Bob. I don't think he was officially called Psychotic. He was more psychotic and psycho. Anyway, so fast forward in November, Backlund went on to beat he beat Bret for the championship at Survivor Series. You had this is, you could tell this is more of a continuation of the rivalry between Bret and Owen. You had I think it was Stu or Helen throwing the towel after Backlund locking the crosswind chicken face. That was all in vain. Bret, this was Backlund's second title win in his career, because his first one, he won it in the mid-70s and lasted until 1980. I think it was 1983. He dropped the belt to the Iron Sheik. He had Arnold Skolin kind of throwing the towel, kind of blamed Skolin, throwing the towel, made Backlund lose the championship to the Iron Sheik. This is before the whole first boom period of the company. And now Backlund, Backlund's second title reign was all in vain. He dropped the title to Big Daddy Cool Diesel at Madison Square Garden. Fast forward in January, Bret was facing Diesel for the championship. And then you had Backlund costing Bret the championship, to set up this ultimate submission. They call it the Ultimate Submission match, but let's be honest, this is an I Quit match. So, anyway, this has got to be one of the worst submission matches of all time. Let's be real. The worst submission, this is the worst I Quit match I ever seen. I'm trying to get my words in. Worst submission match I ever seen. I've seen better I Quit matches, as a wrestling fan, but this is not it. Piper, man. I don't understand why they brought Piper in. He was got nothing to do. Anyway, yeah, he kind of him and Bret had some history, because Bret defeated Piper for the IC title. That's the Intercontinental Championship at Mania 8, and then he kind of special guest refereed the last year's Mania's main event between Yoko and Bret when Bret won the title. I think that match, Bret, he didn't really hurt this match. You had Piper doing his job. This match, he really hurt this match. Let's be honest. Every time, throughout the whole time, Piper was grabbing the mic, and Piper just say, "What do you say? What do you say? What do you say?" Every single time. It got really boring. It's so annoying. You could tell Bret is pissed off. He's so annoyed of Piper. Every single time. At least with referees do it and you watch Monday I Quit matches, I think it's the first I Quit match they ever done for the Federation, but anyway, every time you see you see Monday I Quit matches, it's paced out. The referee grab the mic. If someone is being down or got locked in the submission hold, you say, "What do you say?" and you point the microphone into the male or female wrestler's face. That was more paced out. This is not very paced out. Yeah, it was a new concept. They're trying to work on the kinks of it. So, anyway, but with Piper hurt Piper hurt this match, and also they were trading submission holds. That got really boring. And I think Backlund was teasing to lock in the submission hold. The crosswind chicken face. And in the end, Bret, instead of making Piper tap out with the sharpshooter, he locked his own crossface chicken face onto Bob Backlund. Instead of Piper, keeps saying Piper instead of Backlund saying I quit. He's just like, ah, like, you know, making these dumb noises. I'm guessing that's counted as an I quit. What? So Brett won this match, and he said it in his book, and also he put it on Stone Cold's podcast. This is saying this is the worst match he ever saw, or the worst match he ever wrestled. Worst match in his career. I'm trying to say, mind blower. Also, my throat's a bit dry, but anyway. So afterwards, you had JR interviewing Bob Backlund, and Backlund said, "I saw the light," and also this is leading up to running for president. You know, he didn't really do that in real life. That is just kayfabe stuff. And also, I forgot to mention this, before the actual match, you know, he was on this segment before this match with, he was playing chess with Jonathan Taylor Thomas of Home Improvements. You know, you got Nicholas Totoro trying to interview Bob Backlund, where is Pamela Anderson? And, you know, he kind of went on some kind of tirade or rant saying, like, he kind of said, what's wrong with today's America? And it's funny, like, when Totoro says, about bring up Pamela Anderson, and Backlund says, who is Pamela Anderson? Yeah, it's typical, like, this is wrong with America, blah, blah, blah. Very uninteresting, that was a crappy segment. And also you had, answering, and he kind of, answering, basically he's kind of I'm trying to get words, he's kind of asking Jonathan Taylor Thomas some questions. The kid got it right. For me, I thought with JTT, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, I thought is it the same kid from Last Action Hero? You know, the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Or maybe it was a different kid. I know I checked his, he also voiced the young Simba in the original Lion King film from 1994. Is it the same kid from Last Action Hero? I might be wrong about this. So, yeah, this segment sucked. You know, I find it's filler. You're just killing time on a pay-per-view, because I remember back then they didn't have any video packages. I get it, but it's just fucking filler. It's just like, you know, Nicholas Totoro, man. I don't know, these celebrities, man. I don't think it brought any buy rate of it. I'll get to more of that later on. So let's move on to the actually scratch that. It's not the main event. It's the second to last match of the show. So the next match of the show, the next match of the night. This is for the WWF Championship. Big Daddy Cool Diesel taking on Shawn Michaels. The dudes of Attitudes exploded. So Shawn Michaels brought in Diesel as his bodyguard in 1993. Fast forward in 1994, you can tell like this is a rookie year for Diesel. Like Shawn and Diesel were the tag team. They won the tag team titles. Diesel went on to win the Intercontinental Championship at the end of the year. At the 3 days after Survivor Series, you know, Diesel beat Backlund to become the World Wrestling Federation champion. You know, he's basically the second Triple Crown champion in history. The first one was Bret Hart. So, you know, he's basically on cloud 9. So, you know, unfortunately, Shawn Michaels and Diesel, their friendship's starting to see some cracks, you know, because Shawn causing Diesel matches, like, he caused Diesel the Intercontinental Championship against Razor Ramon, I think it was in April. And then fast forward in Survivor Series, you know, I think he accidentally caused Diesel to get eliminated in the Survivor Series match at Survivor Series. So that was the end of their partnership, you know. The tag team title belts were held up, you know. So yeah, like I said, in December, you know, Diesel, you know, beat Bob Backlund to, like I said, become the WWF champion. In January, Shawn Michaels won the 1995 Royal Rumble match. And then in February, introduced his new bodyguard, that is Cycle Sid. We haven't saw him in the Federation since 1992. He ended up going back to WCW. Now he's back in the Federation. So anyway, and also they're doing this mini story in the show about Pamela Anderson. You know, like Nicholas Totoro. Yeah, he was not that good. He was a bit awkward and cringe, you know. But anyway, he's kind of reporting where's Pamela Anderson. He tells Vince that Pamela Anderson is left the building. Like, do the fans care about Pamela Anderson? Even though, like, unless you watch Baywatch religiously, you know, she's a good woman, but who cares? But anyway, so yeah, so anyway, so instead of they kind of did a switcheroo. You got you got Sean's valet for this match is, alongside Psycho Sid, is Jennifer McCartney, or Jenny McCartney. Diesel was escorted to the ring with Pamela Anderson. And by the way, the special guest ring announcer is Nicholas Totoro, and the special timekeeper is Jonathan Taylor Thomas. So anyway, so the match between Shawn and Diesel, this was good. I think this is match of the night. This is basically the saving grace of this WrestleMania. It's a good back and forth. Shawn was really bumping his ass off like crazy. Like Shawn kind of like Diesel Irish whipped Shawn out of the ring, and Shawn was basically, he took his frustration off the But I forgot to mention this, throughout the whole show, you got the war of media. It's basically photographers around ringside, right near the ring apron. That is like, they're trying to hit home about this is Wrestlemania. In my opinion, it'd be more believable if they did this in America. Not America. It's not America. What the fuck I'm saying? It'd be more believable if they did this in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, but not in Connecticut, the hotline of the company, the WWF. Right now, WWE. That's just me. I know they did one in Los Angeles for WrestleMania 7, but that was more the American themed WrestleMania. But this is the celebrity themed WrestleMania, which they did in Los Angeles. Yeah, they went back to Los Angeles, for Mania 21. WrestleMania goes Hollywood, but which they just hit it home of the celebrity themed WrestleMania. But that's just me. But they got in the way there, the photographers, man. Shawn took his frustration out of it, so I try to keep it short and simple. It was a good back and forth between both guys. I think both guys got good chemistry. Like Diesel was selling his ribs. I think Shawn did the diving elbow. Shawn hit the switching music onto Big Daddy called Diesel. Diesel kicked out. I think the fans booed. I didn't really hear the boos. They were chanting "Let's go, Shawn." You could tell, like, Shawn. Here's the dynamic of this match. Shawn is a heel. Diesel is the babyface. Sid did not interfere. That's kind of weird. I don't want to get into that. So anyway, it was a good back and forth. Good athleticism by Shawn Michaels. And this is his first world title match in his career. First of many times he will have. Anyway, so in the end, Diesel hit the jackknife powerbomb. That was gotta be the worst jackknife powerbomb I've ever seen. I don't think Diesel botched it. It's just Shawn, because at the time, Shawn in the 90s, he was have a reputation of being an asshole. He's such an asshole, I think doing this on his best friend, because Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash are best friends, it just made Diesel look bad. But anyway, Diesel pinned Shawn for the win. And yeah, I think it's too soon. Knowing in hindsight, Shawn will win on to win 3 or even 4 world titles in his career. But I think, like, if Shawn won the title, I think it's a bit too soon to put the belt to Shawn on Shawn. I think they are testing the waters of Shawn Michaels. Is he going to be a potential main eventer? I think on the long term, yes, but at the time, it's unknown. Knowing that he's going to end up like winning. It's funny. The following year, he ended up winning the Rumble match again, and this time he's going to win the title the following year's WrestleMania. You kick off his boyhood dream. I think they done that was in the short term, but at the time maybe it was too soon. I think having Diesel retain the belt was the right call. I think Diesel's reign is a bit underrated. Like, I think he's had some good matches, but sometimes he has some bad matches. The next night on Raw, Shawn kind of fires Sid as his bodyguard. Sid turned on Shawn. Shawn turned babyface. Diesel in the next 2 pay-per-views end up feuding with Psycho Sid in the first 2 In Your House shows. He ended up with some bad matches of 1995 for Diesel. 2 matches against Sid. One of them is a tag team match at King of the Ring. He went on to have that god awful like match against Mabel at SummerSlam. Yeah, I say it's underrated. Diesel's run, you know. But anyway, so Shawn and Diesel will not. They end up tangling along, winning the tag team title belts, and then they won't fight again one-on-one until next year, until In Your House. I think it was the first In Your House show after WrestleMania 12. Yeah, the tagline was "Best friends, bitter enemies." This time with that match, the dynamics changed. Shawn will be the babyface, Diesel's the heel, and that was Kevin Nash Diesel's final match of his first run in the company before going to WCW. Anyway, let's move on to the final match of the show. And I know it's a long revisit review. It's just what it is. Anyway, so the next match we got Bam Bam Bigelow taking on Lawrence Taylor. So this happens at the 1995 Royal Rumble pay-per-view in January. You had this was after the $1 Million Corporation, Tatanka and Bam Bam Bigelow lost the tag team tournament final. The tag team titles tournament final against Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid. You had this confrontation between Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor I think he was a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He kind of played for the New York Giants. Bigelow, I think he pushed him away or slapped him. And Bigelow got suspended. He kind of challenged Lawrence Taylor to a match. He kind of accepted it. And there was a video package of, it looks like a public workout of both Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow had this massive brawl. And also, you got with Bigelow's got the $1 Million Corporation in his side. LT got his pro football team off his side. Let's see this is just a one. It says one-on-one match, but this is acting like a lumberjack match. So anyway, let me check. Yeah. So represent the $1 Million Corporation. We got the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase Sr., Owen I. Shyster, Nikolai Volkov. Why is he? To me personally, why he's in? He kind of like Backlund. I think he just had no place to be in this era of WWF. The new gen era. I think. Going back a little bit, I'm going to talk about a little bit before talk about the actual match. I think with Backlund, I think the company kind of moved away from Backlund. I think he came to the company or returned to the company far too late. If he came back around 88, 89, or 90, maybe things might work out. But I think it was just like trying to get the new fans to watch Bob Backlund. I think I don't want to get into that. I might do a video on Bob Backlund's run in the WWF in the 90s for more information. That's soon. But anyway, Volkov is just out of place. But anyway, so we got $1 Million Man, IRS, Tatanka, and Karma, the Supreme Fighting Machine, and King Kong Bundy, represent Lawrence Taylor's All-Pro Football team. We got Ken Norton Jr., Chris Spillman, Ricky Jackson, Carl Banks, Reggie White, and Steve Mongo McMichael. He became Mongo in WCW. They had this segment between Karma and Mongo. Weeks before this, you had both. There was a brawl between Karma and Mongo. I'll call him Mongo for this video. But anyway, so he ended up going to WCW. He was a color commentator in the early days of Monday Nitro, part of the Horsemen. I think he was United States champion in his run with the company, and also bringing his wife Deborah with him, and brought Deborah into the world of professional wrestling. Anyway, so the match itself, to me, this match, I thought it was this match was good. Not the match of the night. I got the second best match of the night by far. I'll get to my rating of this show later on, but this was good, man. I think with Lawrence Taylor, he didn't really shit the bed. I think he did hit some good moves. I hit an okay bulldog, one more of the match, Bigelow, basically going for the corkscrew moonsault, but instead he ended up he managed to hit the move onto Lawrence Taylor, but instead he kind of jammed his knee. The only nitpick about this match is the $1 Million Corporation and the footballers of LT's team. They're not really colliding and brawling. They're just like not like shouting and arguing. You know, it's just what it is. I don't want to get into that. Bigelow locked in a crappy looking Boston leg crab onto LT. That looks crap, but LT reached the ropes. Managed to hit the flying headbutt onto LT. He kicked out. In the end, LT hit like a, I think it was a mid rope forearm shot onto Bam Bam Bigelow for the win. I think I'm going back on this. You know, I said in my, you know, I don't think this match kind of like hurt. Yeah, I don't think it hurt Bigelow's career, because I done more of my research on it. He got like a half a million. I think it's a half or quarter of a million payout. He got a payday out of this. You know, I think it was half or quarter of $1 million payday for Bam Bam Bigelow. And also at the time, yeah, he was kind of like this crown jewel of the $1 Million Corporation, but at the time, I don't think he was not really doing anything. It's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. I think it's a really shame, man. But I don't think he will go that far in the company. He'd probably be IC champion, but I don't see him being world champion, because I think like at the time, like because most guys end up going to WCW, because RRS end up going to WCW later that year, DiBiase the following year. You know, I think he end up like getting lost in the shuffle. Yeah, you know, would he like if he beat LT on this show, Lawrence Taylor? Would he like elevate him up the card? I don't think so. So yeah, I don't know, man. He ended up getting kicked out of the $1 Million Corporation, you know, later in the year, and he ended up leaving the company. His last match of the company for the WWF was at Survivor Series of that year in November. I don't know, man. I feel like if he won, I don't think he'll end up being a main eventer or a mid carder. I think he'll end up getting lost in the shovel. But for LT, man, good performance for him. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame yet in the WWE, man. But I think this match should never be in the main event. But you know, it's shocking to me. I just recently watched my original review of WrestleMania 11. I didn't rate it back in 2020. So for my revisited update review of WrestleMania 11, I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 10. It's back and forth of giving it a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. I think 2.5 out of 10. I think it's a fair rating for this show. Is it the worst WrestleMania of all time? Not really. I think it's between 9 and 2. One's got the crown to being one of the worst WrestleMania shows of all time, but it's in that worst show category. This is a 3-match show, period. The 3 matches I put in the good for me is the match of the night has to be Diesel versus Shawn. The Intercontinental title match between Double J and Razor Ramon, I like it, but it was bogged down with Rhodey's interference and the DQ finish. The main event was decent. I really enjoyed, you know, Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow. But man, you know, this show sucked. Before that, you know, the only thing I put in the okay has to be the tag team title match, the Smoking Guns versus Owen versus Yoko. Yeah, but man, this show sucked. You know, I almost put like the opener, you know, the Allied Powers versus the Blue Brothers and Undertaker versus Bundy in the okay, but I'm gonna put it in the bad. You know, they're not like terrible matches, but they're kind of like uninteresting, dull filler matches. But yeah, their show suffered. Like the worst match of the night for me has to be Bob Backlund versus Bret Hart with Roddy Piper as the special guest referee. You have to need Piper for like refereeing a match at the time, because at the time he was doing his acting work in. You know, he's an actor. You know, it's knowing that, you know, in '94 Mania 10 he's the special guest referee for the Yoko Bret match in the main event of Mania 10, Now he's the special guest referee for Brett versus Backlund. Knowing that 1 year later, Mania 12, he's going to be competing in the Hollywood Brawl with Goldust, and then it's the reason why he's going to WCW. I think him going to WCW was the right choice. You know, he was not really doing anything, but this was crap. You know, a crappy card, audio problems, and lackluster celebrities. I don't think they gain anything financially out of this. You know, it's not like WrestleMania 14. You know, I think they gained more back, you know, in 1998 than in 1995. You know, but man, like, it's not the. I think it's like 95 was probably the worst for the WWF, well, mostly in wrestling period. But I think it's a worse show. Maybe gain a little bit, but that's not saying too much, you know, financially. But I think they lost a lot of money in the box office, and all the money they like planned for this WrestleMania. I think they lost a lot of money than gaining. So 1995. Wow. You know, it's a really a long bumpy ride. It's of hell. So anyway, what's your thoughts on WrestleMania 11? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Smash the like button, click the like, click the bell. Watch my original review of WrestleMania 11 in the description below. And subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube. Be part of the Central Unit for more wrestling videos and more. And this is the Central Man officially signing out. Check you later, folks.